I was watching the petition signer video that's going around about Stellar Blade. You can see it yourself. I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but some of the, I feel bad for this guy and this guy. Let me just 14 seconds. Watch this real quick.
Nintendo, and the rest of the publishers in the gaming industry that we players will not tolerate any form of censorship moving forward.
I just feel bad for the guy, because it's so clear he's been manipulated and lied to. This is another one.
Hey Sony, I want you to take off the censor off the games, Stellar Blade, because I'm looking forward to play this game as well. Because my game won't be here until Wednesday from the mail, and I want things to change and what's going on around the world and stuff. And sign a petition, all right? And stuff. All right, bye.
I mean, I do. I genuinely feel bad for some of these guys, because it's just like, look, I don't know. It fits the definition of censorship, but it's not. I mean, I don't know how many. Maybe it's just the way it's being articulated. It's being poorly articulated, in my opinion. The idea is that maybe what they should be saying is, we don't like that Sony is following a policy they have where a lot of the more R-rated stuff doesn't get into our video games, even though there's an M on the box. Or even though we were led to believe by the marketing that there would be, no censorship, but there's censorship everywhere. You got to define it. As I've said before, the very nature of somebody in power, the game director, the producer at Sony coming in and saying, I don't think this is fun. Let's change the damage that the blade does when it, hits, when it's blue or whatever. That's censorship, right? But who's being censored? Is who on the team or who in the creative process or the production process do you put as the person who, when they don't get what they want, it's censorship, or when they don't get what they want because someone on the team has said, well, I want this, right? Because that's video game making. So this idea that we won't stand for censorship, you stand for it all the time. You make it sound like the government has come down and they've said, no, we won't allow you to see this. And it's like, every decision that gets made every day in a video game production process is censorship. But I know what you mean, though, which is like, you don't like Sony taking away what you had anticipated being sexy time content. And I get it. I don't suffer for it because I don't really need it in video games. And I'm not trying to like flex, like, oh, there's real women out there, but there are. And there's also just easy to acquire porn out there. If you have the technology to make that video for the petition, you have the technology to go to pornhub.com and get rolling with yourself, So I don't really worry about it. Sony is a business and they do things that they feel will be in the best interest of the business. The other thing that makes me, and you don't have to like that, but signing a petition will do nothing. If you want to send a message, just don't buy the game, right? And make it clear that maybe the reason you're not buying the game is that'll send a message. But short of that, this petition's just stupid. And all the people signing it have been kind of, I don't know who lied to them, but they've been led to believe this will matter. Well, it won't. It's a ridiculous concept. Just don't buy the fucking game. Save your money. Get a fucking PC to play whatever the fuck you want. support the companies. Hell, I do consulting work for a company called Movie Games. They put out a game a few years back that I love called Lust from Beyond. It was and remains a X-rated horror game. And I bought it originally because before I even knew, I wasn't consulting with the company. I just was like, oh, this will be funny to stream because it's like a porn game, but it's an action, or it's a porn game, but it's a horror adventure game. I've never seen that before. And I thought it was going to be a jokey piece of shit. It's a genuinely well-made game that happens to also have X-rated content. It was really cool. And there's some creepy shit in there, man. I mean, there's conjoined twins doing it with this lady, and it shows it. And I mean, it's a weird, disturbing game, and I think it's great. But if you really care about that, and that's fine, I'm not judging that. But if you really care about that, I know not everybody wants a PC or can afford a PC, but eventually you can afford a PC. Eventually you can afford a low-end PC and you can stream GeForce, or maybe just eventually you can afford a decent rig that will run a couple years old games. Certainly it'll run the shit on itch.io, which is where most of the experimental weird shit's happening anyway. But if you want it on Sony, it's kind of like being upset that NBC won't air, it's kind of like, I mean, I don't watch network TV that much anymore, but like when Friends was all the shit and Chandler and Monica, Courtney Cox, were together, and maybe Chandler or whatever the guy's name, the guy who just died, Matthew Perry and Courtney Cox were like, oh, we would love to show them actually having sex. We think it would be so funny. And then NBC's like, oh, yeah, but you can't do that. Oh, they're censoring. It's like, if you're looking to NBC in a sitcom, a mainstream sitcom, which is kind of in this analogy, that's Sony, to be the place you go to get your, sexual fulfillment in media, that's not what they do. So you're really setting yourself up for, to be disappointed and angry. And I get it. You could say, well, they advertised it. They didn't really. You'd never win that in court because it's not false advertising. Because there's no definition of censorship in that this is the uncensored version. What does that even mean? Like I said, somebody makes one decision, it's censored. Every decision is censorship. So since that definition is so broad as it applies to the creative process, I don't think you've really, but it was misleading. It was clear what they were intending. And I think that is fair to be pissed at that if you were looking forward to that. But again, at that point, I think the real answer is just stop supporting them. They're not going to change unless they lose money. So anyway, be well. Seriously, go to Pornhub. I don't think that's what this is about for a lot of people. I think it's clearly they just, they feel, I don't know. I mean, look, they feel like they've been lied to, or they feel like they're being treated like kids, like little children. One guy in the video here, he's like, oh, I'm a grown ass man. I should be able to, and all that's great. But again, that's not what PlayStation is. And, come on. The writing's been on the wall for a long time. The games cost too much. The PR is too negative. They're not going to be that for gamers. They just won't. They make too much money staying in the good graces of families and parents and mainstream audiences. The last thing they're going to do is risk, a big fucking PR nightmare from some busybody, ambulance chasing lawyer or parent for a game at all, let alone a game like this that you can't really defend. You could defend The Last of Us 2 and say, oh, it's narrative and story and this and that and the other. This is admittedly meant to be titillating, according to the director, which is great. I got no issues with that. But when you that's your pitch, you can't really defend it at a PR level, right? Because the number of people who will champion the fact that if you're Sony, stood up and said, no, we're going to do whatever the fuck we want. We want it to be super sexy and whatever. The number of people who are going to show up and buy the game is minuscule, that would buy it because of that, is minuscule compared to the losses they would take in a PR, which could translate into financial losses if they're on this ambulance chasers on Fox News and Newsmax and all that, banging the drum that Sony's selling your kids porn. So, and you know that's how it's going to be. Anyway, be well, be safe. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.